It didn't hurt. It was absolutely terrifying. It was like
Going real fast.
Maybe I'm not going back into the body.
no, I had no control of it. I was just getting fucking shot through the universe and just popping out and be like, where am I?
I'm claustrophobic if I'm spelunking and I get in one of those caves and all of a sudden,
Right.
Yeah.
Water's coming up. And
I'll be backing out of that son of a bitch fast.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Mystic Junkies podcast, the mystery of history comedy show. I messed that up. We're back though. We're here. And we're here for another one. We're excited. This one's going to be kind of cool. It's a broad topic, but we've all seen the movie. So that was kind of, right?
yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, The Sixth Sense. We're covering The Sixth Sense, which...
I see dead people.
Yeah, it's the ability to possibly see spirits or dead people, which I never really heard about until that movie, I'll be honest with you. The Sixth Sense.
That's not just the
Bruce
ability,
Willis
though. I
movie.
mean,
What do you
it's like having intuition, right? Sixth sense. It's,
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not like...
Interoception, is it?
Extrasensory perception.
extrasensory.
Extrasensory perception. Oh, that's ESP. But,
Yeah, I was about to say.
Interoception. Interoception, I
Right,
believe
and that's
it's
the
called.
ability to perceive...
Something
that
that's
like a
going to
medium?
happen. Well, I suppose, yes.
Is that like
but
that?
Well, this is
everybody has, like, you have like a gut feeling.
Right.
You have a gut.
Like when
you
you
have
walk
an
into
instinct.
when you walk into a room and you're like the
Everybody
vibes off.
has it. Everybody has it.
Well, that's why it's connected to ESP, because it's like also called the Sixth Sense. It's claimed paranormal ability pertaining to the reception of information not gained through the recognized physical senses, but sensed within the mind.
Right.
Yeah.
So ESP and the Sixth Sense are basically the same.
And is there like a time period for like when this was first kind of...
Man, probably since they fucking invented fire, dude. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always been around. if you will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Good old UGG.
They might have coined them different names though. They might have been called mediums or mystics or like wizards.
Shaman.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that could see maybe like even into the future, even though it's not necessarily future. Like it's not necessarily fortune telling.
Right.
It's
Because that's a
just-
different art, right?
Right.
It's a different
right.
thing.
A different genre almost.
Yeah.
A
That's
different
interesting.
department.
Yeah, I was looking for this word that if P-R-O-P-R-I-O,
Try that.
proprioception, right?
I wasn't gonna try it.
Proprioception.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
proprioception.
I like that.
Interoception was the one I was trying to say. Like you.
And another
Instincts.
interesting that popped up as a meaning was just the fact that the Sixth Sense was the sense that allowed you to understand where your body was in space.
Huh.
Right.
Like free space or
I
like
guess
actual
just
space?
Actual space.
Sound like meditation's involved, so maybe kind of like the outer body
Astral projection?
Yeah, astral projection, out of body
Yeah,
experience
yeah.
type of thing.
well, that I mean.
But also like scientifically, like even just like where you are in time and space.
3D space.
So for instance, like now we have like all of our senses, we're aware of where we are, right? But hypothetically, if I were to blindfold you right now, and then I told you to use your left hand and touch your nose, you might be like, oh, and then you're like poking yourself in the eye.
Right.
So that's a little bit of like proprioception, kind of. That concept of like where you are, like physically, like in space.
Have you ever heard of those flotation chambers?
Yes, I've
Oh
done
yeah,
it.
sensory
You've done it.
You've been in
Sensory
one?
deprivation.
I've
Yes,
done it
I've
as
done
well.
it a couple times.
Wanted to do that.
There's a psychologist here in town that has a center, and he's got
heard it's fun.
deprivation. Yeah, I think he calls it. It is kind of cool. I think if you're claustrophobic, you
Yeah.
might have an issue with it.
Because that's the one where they close the lid on
Yep.
you, right? And you're just
Right.
floating in water.
and
Yeah.
no sound.
But you
no-
can leave it open if you want.
You can only hear yourself breathing, really.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, if you do it right, you do it in total darkness, submerged in their salt water, so you float.
Yeah, so you're,
Not drown.
you're buoyant.
Yeah, you're buoyant.
Yeah.
And then like they cut off sound. They pretty much cut off all your senses, so it's just you and your mind.
You're kind of tripping a little bit, right? It's
Yeah.
a bit of a... It's like
Are you claustrophobic?
No.
How did
Well,
it feel?
I was okay, and I'm claustrophobic if I'm spelunking and I get in one of those caves and all of a sudden,
Right,
Yeah.
water's coming up and
I'll be backing out of that son of a bitch fast.
Yeah.
But to lay in something like that, I just like to do an MRI. Doesn't?
yeah,
Yeah,
that freaks me out. Like I can't do that. They have to give me medication to like calm me down and stuff.
I think you want that medication.
I do. I want all medication.
Oh yeah, I'm scared. Oh yeah, give me the stuff.
Nervous. Well, we'll give you a Xanax. I've tried that. I'm gonna need something much stronger.
A little heavier.
Too many pills.
Yeah.
So it was wild that Sixth Sense had so many different meanings and definitions. But the one that I guess is the interesting thing is that the Sixth Sense, that you can communicate in another dimensions. I think to me that's what it is. You're communicating in another dimension.
Okay.
Whether that is a ghost, someone who's dead, or
Demon.
or I think there are people that feel that there are other dimensional beings out there, that are not dead. They're just
Crossing
not.
pathways.
Correct.
Like we're in one dimension, they're in another dimension, doing the same thing what we're doing here.
Yes,
The new Ant-Man.
exactly right. Like string theory, right? You know the string theory?
Yeah, definitely.
It's all interdimensional, that there might be layers and layers,
Layers
of
of worlds and
dimensions.
It's a
dimensions,
multiverse. It's never ending. It's pretty crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty cool.
And that you're somehow tapping into that.
Yeah, it's like this. It never stops too. Like my favorite analogy is like any possibility you can imagine has already happened, is happening right now,
Yeah.
and it will happen in the future.
At
Yes.
the same time,
like
everything, everywhere,
you're on
all
the-
at once.
you're
Pretty
on
much,
a-
just like the movie,
Yeah.
man.
Like you're on a Death Star right now, and you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
Oh yeah, dude. I'm in
conquering
the middle
planets.
of battle while I'm doing this, guys.
Yeah.
Did not tell you that I am conquering worlds.
yeah, it's
You know.
So is this is it an ability that everybody has, or is like some people have heightened senses of it?
Supposedly,
Supposedly,
you gotta unlock
yes.
it.
But there's no way
Yeah.
to measure it, right?
Buy a book. I went to Elysian Fields today.
You bought a book.
I didn't buy one, but
Don't
I
go
mean,
to Walmart. You'll get
You
contact
sensed it?
with the wrong
no,
people.
there were books on the shelves that said how to be a beginner medium,
101.
and stuff like that. All these
Miss
books
Cleo
about
101.
spiritualism and how you can be a white witch, or all these books on training.
Oh, well, that's
be all
Elysian
kinds of
Fields.
things.
They're all about that shit. They're all
Right.
stones and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
That's the one where they get mad at you for touching stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Not a fan of
They
that.
let me touch whatever I want.
You're Les McCurdy.
I know people. Well, it's that Sixth Sense. I think is for just about everybody is something that can be just as beneficial to your life as the senses that we can
Touch, feel, smell.
that we can connect with. Because there's so often times when you really need to use your intuition to make a decision.
Right.
I mean, and because you're in a situation where you don't have time to analyze this. You have to go with, and of course, a lot of people say, well, that's just everything you've learned up to that point, all the experiences you have are in your brain, and that is what's going to, which, okay, yeah, that's a part of it, but I don't know. I mean, I think people that are, that I know that are very analytical, like I've got a buddy of mine, very analytical, doesn't believe in any God, afterlife, any of that. That he's a strict atheist. So if you start talking intuition with him, he's going to go, nah. It's just everything that you've learned up to that point.
Instant stop.
All of a sudden some situation hits you, and you go with it based on that.
It's a reference point.
Whereas some of us who I think are more spiritual minded might go, I was guided that way. I was pulled that way. Maybe you really feel that God spoke to you. You know, some higher
gave you a
power
sign.
gave you a sign,
Yeah, yeah.
moved you in that direction. So it's interesting because there's not a right or wrong answer on that, really.
Right.
It's just how you feel about it. And I know as an actor, which y'all didn't know, I'm acting right now. This isn't me. It isn't me. This is Jack Horn. That guy you bought, Don Horn, who you bought your car from. No, but the thing about it is, when you're taking on a character, and that character lives in England in 1437, lives in London, blah, 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 and you're doing all the research on it, and you do all of that back research, and you always create a life, a full history for your character. You only have a piece of their life in the play, but you create a full history. And I know that some actors will go to the point of taking themselves into a meditational state to try to really take themselves there, to really immerse themselves in it in a way that is through meditation, which is, you know, a way of tapping onto a sixth sense too.
It's interesting.
I feel that like because it is
Interesting.
one of the senses. Yeah.
That's my only way to seem distinguished here. I just rub my beard. And like, tell me more. I wish I had a pipe.
You should have a pop.
Make that
One of
into
the
a
bubble
pipe.
ones.
Make your
suit
vape
you.
into a pipe.
It doesn't. It's not the same.
You know how like when someone, for instance, like is deaf or like they're blind, they develop a stronger.
Is that true though?
I
Yes.
believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's research
It
and
is, I
everything.
mean, even why can't I think of his name? He was just here. Daryl
Lennox.
says it. He says it straight up. He's like, of course, like when I lost my hearing, you know,
No,
my
his
other
sight.
my other
His sight.
senses or
His
my
sight.
my sight.
Yeah, big
all of my
difference.
other senses actually kicked in way more.
Like his
Like,
hearing picked up.
Well, yeah, his hearing picked up because, you know, I mean, he's just seeing what he
that-
said, just all
And the
white.
smell,
just
I know his
adaptation?
smell got stronger.
Well, it just like you have to.
Depend on your other senses. more.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I want to say like it's survival, but kind of. Yeah,
is.
it
So
is.
that
That's
brings up the
exactly what
question:
it is.
can your senses also be like a skill, if you will?
That's what I think. Like I was gonna like perhaps because other senses, like the 5 regular senses, could be crafted and kind of like
Honed.
exercised.
Yeah.
I feel that if people took the time and maybe exercised their 6th sense,
Right.
that maybe would be able to be more powerful as well.
Yeah, I
That you
agree.
can kind of what's the word, like cue into it,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
hone into
Touch
it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, like tap into it more.
I
Right.
would think, isn't that what Buddhist monks do? Pretty much.
I think so. You know what? That kind of led me down the whole thing of like what is like 6th sense versus the third eye. You know, when people are like talking about like your third eye,
It's just different terms, yeah.
it might be the same thing because it does sound like it, but
Wasn't the third eye referring to the gland on the back of your brain? I thought
like
I
a
always
certain
thought-
I
chakra.
thought it was right here.
I thought no.
That's why it's called.
Well,
Third eye.
yeah.
But I don't know if it's
In
maybe
chakras,
there
I
is a
think you
gland.
are right.
Not even chakra. I think there's like an actual like gland. It looks like an eye on
Oh.
your brain. It, like
Oh,
it
I
even
don't know. I
it even
didn't know
has
that.
like a
Dude, you're right. There is something in there. I know. Well, the reptilian
Donnie, see if you can
core
pull
is
that up,
really
but-
small. That would be cool to know or see.
yeah. It literally looks like an eye. Like not like a fully functional eye, but
Right, but like deep burrowed right in, like
Yeah.
there somewhere.
yeah,
I
yeah.
do
And
remember
it's also
seeing something on
it's the
this.
gland that drips
Adrenochrome or whatever.
DMT,
yeah.
dimethyl tryptophan, or whatever the
something
fuck it
like
is.
that.
Nice.
That's the stuff that makes you go into another fucking dimension when you sleep, basically.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. That's what you're supposed to.
Oh,
be
and
able
you
to
know-
see how you died. Or
Speaking
The
of
penal
yeah,
gland.
there you go. Speaking of that, this was interesting when I was talking to Daryl.
Oh, it's in your-
Daryl Lennox, great comedian, and he's blind, and he just recently went totally blind over the past couple years.
Yes.
So we were in the green room. He was just here. And we were talking about it, and he's got it in his show now. He is white blind, and he said he said there's shadows, but he goes not like a shadow of a person. He goes it'll be lines, maybe like a triangle, or like a geometric form.
Right.
He said we'll float into it, we'll move into it. So we were talking about that, and then I went, what happens when you go to sleep? He goes, I can see.
Right?
I never thought about that. He goes, and as soon as he said, I went, of course you can.
Right
When
back
he
to
goes to sleep, he goes,
memories.
I dream, and because I was sighted, he
Right.
goes, my dreams are in beautiful color. I see everything. I am not blind when I go to sleep. And I thought that was, I've never heard that statement from a blind person.
Right.
But it's as soon as they say it, you're like, well, of course that's
Maybe he's in tune though with the sixth sense though, because if like I always believed in a global consciousness and that we'd be able to tap into it, and that's kind of the same thing in the sixth sense and the third eye type of deal. So like maybe once he was off the sight realm, you know, altogether, now he's in tune probably way more with the other five senses, you know, and the fifth or the sixth would be one of those five. So he's pretty much maybe even in tune with other people's minds.
Well, what can you do with this sense though? Like, if we had to define it, like what are some of the attributes to it?
Communicate with each other.
But like, how so?
Well, even with ESP or the other realm, like going out of body experience stuff, like you can meet up with other people across the globe, talk to other people across the globe.
But that has to do with the sixth sense, or is that just like astral projection?
That's the whole thing. It's this.
Because I've astral
the
projected
same
before,
shit, man.
and not on purpose, and it was not fun at all. It was.
Did what?
I've astral projected.
Oh yeah, I did. And it was amazing.
Did it hurt?
Did you have fun?
Oh,
I had a
blast.
terrible time.
It hurt.
It didn't hurt. It was absolutely terrifying. It was like
Going really
maybe
fast.
maybe I'm not going back into the body.
no, yeah, it was that. I was also watching myself sleep, and then there was all these like weird shadow figures around me, like trying to grab me, and I was like in the middle of my bed, like like
Yeah.
stop it, and then I went to a whole other place, and then I had no control over it. People were like, oh yeah, I go to France. I was just like chilling in France. I was like, no, I had no control over it. I was just getting fucking shot through the universe and just popping out, and be like,
Dude,
where am I?
That's
It's
what's
terrifying.
really crazy.
Well,
to
no,
me.
it's
I tell you, Mike,
That-
that's a really good question. And what Twee, what do you say on that?
Well, I was gonna say that even though it ties in a lot, like the sixth sense and third eye, from what I found is that third eye I think is more associated with like clairvoyance and sort of like a state of enlightenment. Which,
Right.
not to say that the sixth sense isn't related to that, but when I would look up like the definition of sixth sense,
Yeah.
it has your inner sense of guidance. So kind of like what Les was saying earlier, it was sort of like it just helps you to kind of like survive and like
decisions.
make a decision like a split second. So in that aspect though, in a sense, that means that animals have like a sixth sense because they have like an intuition, they have like an instinct. Like when they see clouds forming a certain way or they feel like the pressure drops, they're like, oh, something's gonna happen, like an earthquake or like whatever, a storm or like.
But it doesn't that feels more practical and scientific than it does spiritual. Does that make sense? Because you just said clouds
Sure.
forming, pressure dropping, like.
But I
you
think
have-
the
also-
sixth sense can be scientific and
okay.
very predictable. I mean, it doesn't. I don't think sixth sense has to be astral projection. Has to be talking to an interdimensional beings.
Right.
I think it can go right to something that is very practical in your life that you can use.
Well, that's what we said. It
every
allows
day.
us to keep track of where our body parts are in space. That's the basics of that sixth sense, correct? Right? That's the scientific
I think so.
terminology.
It's
That's
like
what I got.
3D mapping.
Yeah, 3D mapping of yourself in time and space. And the way I would see that is like picturing a three-dimensional, well, a four-dimensional world, or maybe the universe on 4 dimensions, and you knowing exactly where you are within all of that.
Now, Edith, you got something.
Well, no.
Oh, okay. You look like you had
just-
something.
No,
She's
it would just.
mean
I
mother,
already
huh?
said
Rub your
that.
mustache.
I don't have. It's a beard. I just think everybody has it. Everybody has
Some
sixth sense, a
variation.
form of
Yeah.
Right.
Like
In tuned or
mediums
not
have
in tuned to
a higher. They're a higher. They're more in tune to it than your regular
Like the grade
Joe.
system, like, you know,
Yeah.
kindergarten.
Well,
and-
I think
I would pose this question to everybody, and I can't imagine that everybody has not had this many times in their life. But can you think of one where you made a choice that you felt was made not analytically? You didn't sit down and research, and your choice was made on
Gut feeling.
a gut feeling. I believe that I am being pulled
Right.
towards that, and I'm gonna go with it. And I think a lot of people get that feeling and don't go with it,
Right.
because then they do stop that process and begin to analyze and think, oh, is that the rather than letting the, so I mean, can do any of y'all have an example of that happening to you?
I can't think of like a long-term version of that, but the only thing I can think of is when it was in sports and driving, for whatever reason. I've avoided so many accidents just off the way something looks. Like I've literally looked at a car before and been like, "You're a bad driver," and I've sensed them about to pull out in front of me, where I'm already like moving out of the way.
There you go.
And then I'm like, "Oh shit!" and they actually do it, and I'm like, but it's never been like I don't have time to think about it. It almost feels like reaction and instinct to me.
Yes.
Or in sports too, where I would be able to read somebody and counter them, if that makes sense. Like in
Yes.
basketball, where
Like chess.
I'm terrible at chess, but
Well,
like
I'm just saying like that.
yeah, I
But
guess
you
so.
got a
Sinking
feeling.
back.
You got a
Yes.
feeling.
Yeah.
More than
Pool's another good one where you can feel it. Like you can feel the angle. You can feel that like if I make this shot, it'll set me up perfect for the next shot. You know what I mean? Where it's like I don't have anything to base that off of. You know what I mean? I don't have any prior experience necessarily. It just feels like if I hit it this way, it'll roll and line me up for the 8-ball. You know what I mean?
And then
It's
you
like,
miss. And then it's
no, when you hesitate, you fuck up.
That's the truth
Anytime I
right
ever
there.
hesitated with that, I get into an accident. I drop the ball. I fucking miss the shot entirely. Yeah.
Right.
But if you don't hesitate, you have to almost fully believe in it. Like you commit to it, it'll work out. You know what I mean?
Yes,
You can't
absolutely.
second guess yourself. That's the only time like in my own personal life.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody else?
When way back, there was one day that all my friends went out. They just got my boy just got a truck, and they're all going. I usually we'd hang out in the back of the truck and everything, and there were a bunch. I think everybody could sit in the front. I would have been the one that went in the back. I just didn't want to go. There was just something feeling off about the day or whatever when I got home from school, just something weird. And then I was just like, nah, I'm going to stay home. And then they went out. And then when they got back, or I saw them the next day, they were like, dude, if we picked you up, you would have been dead. Because you sit in the back of the truck when it's full with everybody, whoever's last sits in the back of the truck. Homeboy fucking ended up jackknifing the truck on a curb and just 180ing it, and it would have just fucking tossed me.
Jesus.
I would have flown the hell out of the back of the truck. So that one kind of possibly maybe saved my fucking
See
life.
that kind of stuff always fucks with me though, because I always bring up the question of well, what if you did go? And
that's it, dude.
No.
Yeah.
I'm saying, what if you did go
Could
and
I changed it?
just because of that slight variation,
Butterfly effect
something could have
type of deal,
completely changed. They might have been delayed an
Yeah,
extra
I could
minute.
have said something and he wouldn't have looked, or delayed a couple seconds. Yeah,
That always
exactly.
messes with me on that.
That's
where
the
I'm
same
like,
here, man. It's totally same here.
Final Destination.
That's exactly. Yeah.
It's coming for you
That
anyway.
movie.
You're gonna get it. It's
You're gonna
come.
die, dude.
Seriously.
Something's gonna get you.
Oh
Something
my
will get you.
God.
So many, bro. No, it's happened throughout my life. That's why this is really eerie.
Yeah.
That was just one of them. One of fucking many weird
Yeah.
scenarios.
See, I
where
don't
you
have
walk
many of
into a room.
those where it's a long term.
Do you have one, Twee?
I don't know if this would qualify as sixth sense, but I had a dream where something was communicated to me, and then I would relay it back to the person, not knowing what it really means, and then they were like, "Oh my God!" But the dream was my uncle, and he had passed away for a while now, right? And I love my uncle. We're close in a sense that he was sort of like the dad that I didn't really have, because we were just like that. And I was close to my cousins so much that I don't even call them my cousins. Edith knows, they're my sister or they're my brother. We don't even have the word cousin really, right? So he appeared to me in a dream, and I don't know, it was like a family trip. And it wasn't like a trip that we've ever had. It was just like a made up trip. We were somewhere with snow. It never happened, So it was this weird scenario. And then I kind of get myself alone with him for a second. And then he's like, hey, tell Tia that whatever she's going through right now, everything's going to be okay. Oof. And I was like, okay. I'm like, that's weird. And then I'm like, whatever. I wanted to get back to talking to him because it felt good. It felt, and I knew it was a dream, but it was just it felt good just to have a conversation with him. So I woke up and I was just like, oh, that's weird. And I just think in my head, he visited, right?
Right.
So then I texted her whatever time that was, like maybe 7 a.m. And I said, hey, Baz said everything's gonna be okay. And she's like, are you effing with me right now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. I'm like, I just wanted to like relay that before I forget, because it's like, you know, when you wake up and then all of a sudden the dream just scatters. So I texted that to her, and I really didn't think anything more of it. And she's just like, oh my gosh, because she had been kind of like going through something difficult, and I guess if he was still alive, she would have like talked to him about it. She told me what it was, you know, and she's like, wow. She said she started crying because she couldn't believe that he had said that to me. So I don't know if that's like a sixth sense or what that is, but it was something.
Well, I think all of that falls into the realm, I would think, of sixth sense, because it is not, you did not come to that by sight, touch, smell, taste, or hearing. By this, that you can analyze, that you can prove. You know what I mean? He didn't appear in front of you. You know, it was that where you go, you could have blown that off.
Right.
And never contacted her and go, oh, it's just a silly dream, you know, or whatever. But you did. You felt compelled
Sure.
to reach out to her.
And I had no idea. Like, I hadn't talked to her in probably like a couple of months. And I had no idea that she was even like going through stuff, right? Like, so I just like dropped her a line like, hey, how you doing? By the way, I had a dream about your dad last night. And he said everything's going to be okay. She's like, holy cow. So that was,
not to
that was
mention
weird.
you remembered the dream.
Sure.
You know, I've had so many of those where like you maybe like get a little, it's a cute
Flash.
and then you forget it, it's gone.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's always interesting.
Dream book, man.
Edith?
Keep it by the door.
Do you have
I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything.
I got one more if I.
Well, I was just going to say,
Leslie,
to me, I think about just the process of getting, the process of when I left home, and each when I look back at each thing, the choice that I made that were just laid in front of me, and I could have said no, but I went this way, and it just became a domino effect, each choice of taking me from a kid from Chattanooga, Tennessee that has no connection to what I'm doing today.
Right.
You know, like I grew up wanting to be a forest ranger, like the polar opposite. I thought that would have been the greatest life ever. And then this gets in front of this situation to where, and you know, they when I look back at it, several of those choices I could have easily gone, well, you know, I have no qualifications for that. That's not anything I'm connected. Why go that way? You know, instead of planning something that had more to do with how I grew up, what my skill set was, you know, instead of going, no, I think that would be better. And it's just, and all it was a feeling that would be better.
Right.
But when I look at where it took me, the journey it took me and where it ended up, you go, well, I think it was pretty fucking awesome, you know, that it ended up there. And I think I talked about this in a podcast before, but I had a dream when I was probably 2 or 3 years into stand-up comedy, just into it enough that I was a professional and I was touring enough, and at that point where I wasn't a headliner yet, but you could see that if I work hard enough at this, I can get there. You know, I felt, but there was still part of me that goes, you know, I mean, I left acting to do this, you know, that's where should I be going back to what I got a degree in and and I had a dream, and there was a woman in the dream, and that said to me, everything that you're doing right now is because you've been led to this point to get to this, and it is exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and it's gotten you everything in your life that is good, and it's going to continue to do that. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And I pretty much felt like it was my mom, you know. And that dream reoccurred 2 more times, you know, a little different, but the same woman, same place, and same basic thing, you know. Basically, you're doing good. Keep going, you know, kind of a thing.
So I was in college, and it was late night, It's one of the creepiest ones because now just talking about all this crap, I buried this a while ago and then it just popped right back in. So I gotta say it. I even have it published in a book that I published. I'm gonna actually republish my book of poetry and slam pieces because I just refound it and it's in there. And I sat down at a bonfire in the back of my house. No one else is awake, and I wrote this poem about kind of like burning, like everything burning and then to grow again, like the phoenix, pretty much rising out of the fire.
Right.
Like everything got burned down to rise up again, and we move on and stronger. And and I wrote this at like 5 o'clock in the morning, close to 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had multiple roommates. So there's witnesses because the next day I came out the room and I'm like, holy fuck, But the next day we woke up. I woke up to my female roommate not like just thumping on my door and being like, wake up, wake up, wake up. And I got out there and then we had the news on and the fucking Twin Towers fucking got hit and fucking burned down, dude. That was fucking real. Like, I wrote this thing about burning to the ground and rebuilding like hours before that shit fucking happened. And I just fell asleep and woke up to the fucking 9/11. It was one of the weirdest feelings I've ever had in my entire life. It's one of the weirdest poems that I can associate to one of the weirdest moments in my entire life,
Yeah.
And it's always been weird. I never even wanted to talk about it around that time because everybody was a fucking terrorist if you were talking about it then.
Yeah,
It's like, like he has transcripts. He
Yeah.
was talking about things.
Accidentally caused 9/11.
Yeah, exactly. Or, something. But once again, with I always believed in like a universal consciousness to the point of maybe a mind can pick up on things from all over the globe.
Well, I think that
pick up on chatter.
we're kind of at our time.
Yeah.
But I think we would all agree that the sixth sense is something that we should nurture as much as we do the other five, because it's something that even if you want to be analytical and scientific about it and go, it is nothing but all of your experiences, and then that's what becomes the intuition or whatever. But still and yet, we all have times in our life where we need to go with intuition.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'll end it with this. I was in a group, an empowerment group for many years. All professionals. Your sister was in it, Ione. All professionals from different fields, and we'd meet for lunch once a week, and it was just to make each other better, empower. And one of the people in there was a psychologist, and there was a question that got posed to him of, out of everything you've seen as a psychologist, everything you've experienced, can you give us one great piece of advice about the mind, about how he goes, go with your intuition. It's generally correct.
Yeah.
And that was from him talking to thousands and thousands and thousands of people in therapy sessions, so there you go. All right.
Yeah, there's a through line there.
There you go.
Go with your gut, guys.
All right.
Go with your gut, baby.
All right.
Thank you guys for listening. Go to our Instagram, McCurdy's Comedy Official. Come see a world famous comedy show right here in this theater. Great shows all the time. We got a great headliner this next week, actually.
Absolutely. I think we can say
Like
that
every week. Every week. They're always good.
Sometimes it's you. Sometimes
Sometimes it's me. No, sometimes it's me. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Good night.